all so much. You know, when you look at the rhetoric that is out there, this defund the police, disrespect the police, be compassionate to criminals has not served this nation well. As I talk to Tennesseans, they want to fully fund the police and make certain that criminals are locked up and not able to commit these violent crimes. They're also very concerned about some of this language from the left that has made heroes of criminals and has disrespected law enforcement. With that, we can take a couple of questions. Aisha?
Senator Blackburn, just two questions for you. House Majority Whip Clyburn just told one of our producers a few moments ago that there is no urgency, quote, no urgency to pass police funding bills that stalled in July. Your response to that? And then number two, Democrats have been doing a pretty good job of trying to make abortion the midterm issue this November. How do you cut through that and bring the attention, especially for women and families, back to issues like that?
Absolutely.
Who are you with?
And she's with Fox.
With them?
Fox.
Okay.
Yeah. When it comes to the funding issue for police, Senator Kennedy mentioned and Senator Haggerty is working on a way for leftover COVID funds to be used in some of this funding. Do you want to talk a minute about that?
Thank you. Aisha, thanks for the question. I think that Representative Clyburn misses the urgency here that I'm just shocked that our Democrat colleagues don't seem to want to see, because it's obvious across America that we've got crime running at rampant rates. You look no further than the collapsed border and what's happening there that my colleagues have described in terms of the fentanyl traffic that's come in. Sheriffs in Tennessee tell me that each month is worse than the month before it in terms of the number of overdoses and the number of deaths from illicit drugs that are coming across that southern border. When we put a vote to the floor to return, to deport every illegal immigrant that's here who's committed a crime, every one of our Democrat colleagues voted against it. We've got to make the world understand, we've got to make America understand that this is indeed urgent. I appreciate you raising that with Congressman Clyburn, but I think he needs to take a look beyond his party and think about what's good for America. In terms of funding this, we're going to be as creative and as collaborative as we possibly can be. What we need to do, though, is fund this properly, meaning we do need more law enforcement resources, but we need to fund this without anti-police and anti-law enforcement strings attached to it. That's going to be very important how we do it as well. So we've got to create the right environment, as all of my colleagues have said. It has been a demoralizing environment for police and sheriff departments across this nation. It's happening in Tennessee as well. Recruitment is very difficult. We need to change the tone at the top. We need to properly fund and properly resource those members of law enforcement that we depend on so much. And we need to look at what's worked in the past. And again, Operation Legend worked in the past. It helped in my home state, bringing federal resources to bear to deal with a surge in crime. We need to look hard at other ways to address this. We need this administration to be creative about solving a problem rather than creating more of them. Thanks.
Let me, as somebody who's in one of those re-election campaigns, I would say the Democrats are as detached from reality as they are from the truth. They can't escape the reality of the fact that we are now facing 40-year high inflation. A dollar that they held at the start of the Biden administration is now worth 88.3 cents. They can't escape the reality of what we had in terms of record gas prices, high energy costs. They can't escape the reality of our open borders. Somewhere around 3 million people have been encountered, processed, and dispersed or come to this country illegally as a known or unknown getaway. That's a number larger than the population of 17 states. They can't escape the reality of the rising crime. You know, the open borders, that's also opening up the flood zones for a flood of deadly drugs coming into every state of the union. We're all border states. You know, local sheriffs, they used to have to shut down meth labs. They don't have to do that anymore because those meth labs have been put out of business by the Mexican drug cartels, who can more easily and more cheaply and in a more deadly result flood America with methamphetamines and with fentanyl. So again, the Democrats can't escape that reality. So to me, that is what the election is about. As much as the mainstream media wants to deflect the public's attention away from the disaster that is Democrat governance and Democrat policies, radical left policies, they're just not going to be able to do it because they cannot hide the reality that the American people, folks in Wisconsin, actually see and are having to deal with.
Aisha, I think it's not so much an issue of Republicans breaking through with their message. When you go across this country, whether you're in Indiana or Louisiana or Wisconsin, people will tell you they're trying to break through to Washington to make certain that they realize crime in our communities, crime on our streets, the way drugs are flooding the border and gangs are distributing these drugs, the way young people are losing their lives. The American people want something done on this issue. This is why we are working on legislation. It is why we are imploring the White House, take the measures that are at your disposal right now and begin to exercise that authority in order to get the crime situation in our nation's cities under control.
Can I say something on that?
You surely can, always.
Because I think Bill and Marsh's and Bill's bill is speaking to a central point that's on the lives of most Americans. And I know it's difficult to generalize about America because we're this big, wide open, diverse country. But I think if you talk to most moms and dads in this country and ask them what are they worried about when they lie down to sleep at night and can't, I don't think they're worried about proper pronoun usage. I don't think they're worried about the president's war against oil production in America. I think they're worried about their job and the economy and inflation. And I think they're worried about crime. If they have a teenager, or not even teenager now, the kids are going to experiment, and a lot of them experiment with drugs. They're worried that their kid is going to take a puff off a marijuana cigarette and die. Not get addicted, die. And I think this bill's going to help that. And in the long term, we can debate causes of crime. It'd be an interesting discussion. But short term, what you allow is what will continue. And you're not going to get control of crime until you keep the cops you have, you add more cops, and you stand behind your cops when they're right, which is 99.9% of the time. And folks, that doesn't cost money. I mean, we have sent the first two do, but we have sent a breathtaking amount of money to state and local government. I mean, they've got more money now than they've ever had in their entire histories, adjusted for inflation. They've got the money to do this.
Right, one more question before we close. Go ahead.
Senator, I think you touched on it a little bit about how without prosecution, there's no deterrent. And what message do you have to, the top cop in charge, over at the DOJ, that you have to start prosecuting these things?
That's exactly right, and that is why Operation Legend, that was so effective during the Trump era, is something that needs to be re-implemented. It was very successful in Memphis. It upped the number of criminals that were prosecuted, criminals with guns that were prosecuted. They were able to get more convictions. Having those federal law enforcement officers focus on working with local law enforcement, not only does it bring more manpower, but the skill set that brings is vitally important to helping to move these cases along, first to apprehend the criminals and then to move these cases along. And that is why this is a part of the focus of the letter that has gone to the White House. Thank you all for being with us today.